YouTube, welcome to the video, man. It's your boy BRT, aka the God in the building, man. Listen, I got a good video for y'all today. So today, man, we watching the top 10 picks from the 2014 draft. How did their careers turn out? I don't remember who was in this draft. I don't remember none of the top 10 picks in this draft. So we gonna see together. Let's get to it.
The 2014 NFL Draft is officially open.
I don't remember none of these 10 niggas.
2014 was loaded with insane talent.
The St. Louis Rams select Aaron Donald.
AD,
New York
okay.
Giants select Odell Beckham.
But none were a bigger deal on draft night than this guy.
I'm guessing
Johnny
one of the two
fucking
is
Manziel.
your number one. Who does Houston take?
Fuck is he a
I'm going to
bust?
go with Johnny Manziel.
More than half of 2014's first-round picks have made a Pro Bowl in their careers. But it's been 10 years. That's a lifetime in the
Looking at the top 10, that
NFL.
shit
And
look
most of these
disgusting.
guys aren't in the league today. As for the top 10, we've got everything from future Hall of Famers to all-time busts. So
I seen, like,
why don't we
4
go
niggas on
ahead
there. I'm like,
and
who the
dive
fuck
on
are
in?
they? And 2 of
With
them
the
was
number one
ass.
pick, the Texans selected the most hyped up defensive college player at the
Jadeveon
time,
Clowney.
edge defender
Jadeveon
Jadeveon
Clowney was a
Clowney.
demon.
There were rumors
He was
that
nice.
Johnny Manziel was going to
He was
get
nice.
picked here, but unfortunately for the Browns, that didn't happen. Clowney was described as, quote, a physical specimen with rare size speed combination. Amongst physical accomplishments like running a 4.5 40 at the size that he was at, USA Today called him by far the most freakish physical specimen in the draft. The hype train from his high school days just kept building and building to where the expectations when Clowney entered the NFL were as high as they could get. We had
I
never
don't know if
seen
he
a
lived up
consensus
to that
number one
much of a
prospect
hype,
in high
but
school
Jadeveon
be
Clowney's
taken
pretty
number
nice.
one overall in the NFL
Nice.
until
Alright.
Clowney.
I don't think
was
he lived up to
projected
that
by
type of a hype
NFL.com
that
to
he
be
had
a
coming out,
perennial
but
All-Pro.
he's nice.
Well, after the draft, it felt like Clowney just sort of flew under the radar for a while. He only appeared in 4 games his rookie year due to injury. Then had a decent 2015 campaign, but wasn't any sort of star player by that point. While guys like JJ Watt and Whitney Merciless starred, Clowney was sort of a background player. Things began to turn a corner in 2016. JJ Watt suffered an injury that limited him to just 3 games,
That
and
nigga
Clowney
cooked.
took more of center stage.
He had no choice but to. He was a first round draft pick. You
From
better step up,
2016 to 2018, Clowney reached 3 straight Pro Bowls and ranked 49th,
damn, he had-
32nd, and 63rd in the players' top 100, respectively. But after his 5th season, he and the Texans couldn't reach a long-term agreement, leading to a trade to Seattle. And since that trade, Clowney's career has changed a lot. In terms of his play, he's been up and down since that initial trade. He has
definitely
played
has.
for a total of 5 franchises in 6 years. So ultimately, Clowney has been a good NFL player, but wasn't even close to the hype that he had
That's what I'm
out
saying,
of college.
like, he was a good
Some
player,
call
but I don't
Clowney
know
a
about
bust,
that shit.
but I think that's just because of his lack of statistical production, and the fact that because he's played for so many teams, no fans have any real loyalty to him. He did have one of his best
That is
seasons
true.
this last year in Baltimore. So 10 years in, and Clowney is still playing at a high level. With the second pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Rams selected offensive tackle Greg Robinson.
Who the fuck is
And here's
Greg
how he was
Robinson?
described. Quote, big, strong, athletic, overpowering left tackle with the raw potential to become a premier franchise
I
left
don't know
tackle.
who this nigga is,
However,
I ain't gonna lie.
in 3 underwhelming seasons, Robinson never quite figured out things in St. Louis. He ranked out 62nd of 74 eligible tackles in 2016 and was one of the worst
damn.
run blockers in the league. He bounced around from guard to tackle and finally to the Rams bench before he was
That's probably
subsequently
why they
traded
was
to
moving
the
him around a
Lions
lot. He
for a
probably couldn't
6th
get
round
really
pick.
set at a
From
certain
there,
spot.
Robinson only lasted 6
God
games
damn,
in Detroit
nigga, did you
before
wanna
being
block?
waived. Then he went to Cleveland for 2
Oh, this
years
nigga's
before
ass.
becoming
This
a free
nigga's
agent
cooked.
and never signing with another NFL team. As far as to what
feel like-
happened, one can only
I feel like when teams get down to the Browns, that's like their last destination. like this is my last resort. Like if I don't make it on the Browns, I ain't gonna make it on no other team. So I gotta go out and ball on this team. I feel like this is like the Browns. Browns is like, okay, nigga, this your last chance, nigga. Get right. Because if you don't get right after this 1-2 year contract, you cooked, buddy. You're not getting another contract nowhere else. Maybe the XFL or CFL, somewhere else.
speculate. One potential factor is the major difference in the college scheme that he played in versus the NFL scheme. This has actually become a big issue in scouting tackle prospects, which has led to a lot more busts at the position over the last 10 years. and nowadays, it's difficult to find a good starting tackle in the NFL draft, whereas it used to be surefire. But to go back to Robinson, he has also clearly had issues off the field that haven't helped him.
Oh,
On
nigga,
February
you a
18,
criminal too? Oh yeah, get this nigga out of here.
For possession of 156.9 pounds of marijuana,
Oh, God.
and he was ultimately sentenced to 5 years
In
probation.
Texas too is crazy.
Then as recently as 2022, Robinson was arrested again for a possession of another $120,000 of illegal drugs. With the third
Fucking
pick in the
waste.
2014 NFL Draft,
waste. Give me
Jacksonville
a fucking
selected
contract.
quarterback Blake Bortles.
Oh,
Compared
fuck.
to Johnny Manziel,
Blakey?
Bortles was much less known as a college player. But at 6'5" and 230 pounds, he had the typical mold of an early first rounder. And here's how he was described. Quote,
You 6'5",
big,
230,
athletic,
240, bro. You
ascending
you going
quarterback
first
with enough
round,
arm
top 10,
talent
bro.
and intangibles
Easily.
to develop into a franchise starter. Is not yet a finished product, and scouts'
Wait, bro,
opinions
this
vary
fucking
on his
ass.
ceiling.
That
But
nigga's
elements
ass.
of Bortles' skill set compared to some of the best in the
He
game
realistically
today,
probably had
and
like
his
one or
best
two good
football
seasons
is ahead of him.
his whole
But
career.
from the get-go, Bortles had one thing working against him.
We all know where you land as a quarterback matters.
Jacksonville had been a joke for years. They had cycled through multiple coaches and quarterbacks, including another early first-rounder, Blaine Gabbert, just 3 years prior to Bortles.
Gabbert had one or
And
two
from
good
day
seasons,
one,
too.
Bortles struggled, and Jacksonville was terrible.
See,
In 3 years,
2015, that was
they never
one of his
won
only
more
good
than 5
seasons,
games
even though
in a
his team
season.
went 5-11.
And
That was
as
a good
bottom
season, 35
dwellers,
touchdowns,
Bortles
18
had been an
interceptions.
inefficient turnover machine.
Yo, them helmets
However,
was fire.
due to multiple years of picking high in the draft, Jacksonville entered 2017 loaded with pure talent. As Jacksonville rose as a team, Bortles played his best ball, leading Jacksonville improbably to the AFC Championship game, where at one point they led by 10 points in the fourth quarter and looked destined to reach the Super Bowl, but fell flat. Even though Bortles
Brady
finally
effect.
had a decent season,
That
it
nigga
was
ain't been
clear
right
from an
since then.
outside perspective he just wasn't all that talented.
Jaguars will
He just had good weapons around him.
blank
honestly.
because of Blake Bortles.
We'll underachieve. I don't mean to be a jerk to Blake Bortles. The facts are the facts. He just can't throw the football.
Now, as much as I don't think that's fair, Bortles certainly wasn't worthy of a large contract extension, which is what Jacksonville gave him and immediately regretted.
Did they stick with him too long in their franchise? Absolutely. Was it ridiculous to try for the last 2 off seasons to build a team around Blake Bortles? Yes. Was the extension absurd? Of course.
Bortles struggled mightily in 2018 before being traded to LA to be their backup and a practice squad guy. And
God
after a few
damn,
years
man,
of
you
that
go
gig
from
with multiple
back-to-back
teams,
seasons
Bortles
before that.
retired in 2022 and hasn't started a game since 2018, which is wild considering that he started the AFC Championship that same calendar year.
God damn, that fall off is crazy.
With the 4th overall pick, the Bills selected Clemson star receiver Sammy Watkins.
Sammy Watkins is a fire
was
player.
such a
I don't
stud in
think-
college. Like Clowney,
Damn.
he passed the eye test with flying colors. At one point, Clemson had DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, and Martavis Bryant in the same receiving unit.
That's a
just
nasty unit.
terrifying.
Yeah, that
But
is
here's how
crazy.
Watson was described going into the NFL. Quote, a legitimate #1 caliber receiver who stepped onto the field as a
Like
true
Sammy
freshman
Watkins,
and made an
he's a solid
immediate
player.
game-changing
Like,
impact.
he's a good
Has rare
receiver, that's
speed,
it.
soft hands, and the big playability to challenge NFL defensive backs as a rookie. As a projected
God, that
future
catch
Pro Bowl
was
talent,
nasty.
the Bills were eager to get this
Failed,
guy on the
recovered, and
field.
snagged it with one
Immediately,
hand.
Watkins became the team's #1 receiver and finished his rookie year second among rookies in receiving
Oh my
yards
God, a
and set the
prime
Bills'
Sammy
franchise
Watkins
records
with a
for rookie
Diggs? Oh
receiving
my
yards
God, that
and
would've been a
touchdowns.
nasty duo.
In year 2, despite missing 3 games, Watkins still eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark, finishing 9th in the league in yards per game and also scored 9 touchdowns.
Looking to Watkins.
And who the fuck is his quarterback? No one knows.
It was reasonable to assume that he was going to continue to develop, but things stalled out for Watkins at that point. A broken bone in his foot during the offseason led him to being on IR throughout the first half of the season, and when he came back, Watkins didn't do enough to throughout the
Bro, look at this nigga head.
first
like
half
right
of
here.
the season, and
Look at this nigga head. Why is his head shaped like that? Look at that. That is nasty. Go bald, nigga.
when he came back, Watkins didn't do enough to impress the front office. They declined his 5th-year option and traded him to the Rams. From that point, Watkins became a serviceable number
Damn, I
2
remember him
or
playing for the
3
Rams.
for multiple
That's
teams.
probably why he only played 1
Always
year.
playing a role, but nowhere near where he was expected to be coming out of college.
Damn, he had
The peak
2
of his
good
career
seasons.
had to be his huge 2019 playoff run, where he put up near 100 yards a game and had a huge showing in both the AFC title and Super Bowl. After playing for Baltimore and Green Bay in 2022, Watkins did not play in 2023, but is not officially retired as of yet. With the 5th overall pick,
Who the
the
fuck is the
Raiders
Raiders?
selected outside linebacker Khalil Mack.
Oh,
At the
fucking goat.
University
This
of
nigga's
Buffalo,
nasty.
Mack was a total legend. He holds the all-time NCAA record for forced
This is the Hall
fumbles
of Famer.
and is also tied for the all-time lead in career tackles for loss. Here's a cool story about him. In NCAA 11, he was rated as a 46 overall player, which is just about as bad as it gets. So he chose to wear the number 46 as a motivational reminder. Here's how he was described entering the NFL. Quote, a havoc-wreaking rush linebacker with the burst and acceleration to excel as a right defensive end in a 40 front.
Quickly,
nothing
where
about
should he go then?
Well, not number one. I would
All
take
right.
Khalil Mack in a heartbeat over him, and I wouldn't even sweat about it. And I will have a much. Even if he develops, he's still not going to be better than Khalil Mack as a football player.
Oh,
As a rookie,
shit, that's
Mack
crazy, 'cause he
immediately
definitely
stood
is
out.
better than-
He was a
than
very
Clowney.
effective run defender right away, producing
Or was he
16
saying
tackles
Mack
for
is better than
loss
Clowney?
as he ended the year
If he
as
was,
a
then he's right.
defensive rookie of the year candidate. From there, he became one of the best edge rushers
Damn, Oakland,
in
why
the
y'all
game.
trade this nigga, y'all? This nigga was really cooking for y'all.
The Raiders were back in playoff contention after a long hiatus,
He-
and
but he
Mack
helped
was
y'all
at
get
the
to the
forefront of
playoffs.
this
Like, come
because
on.
he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2016. And after 3 dominant seasons in a row in Oakland, Mack was involved in a blockbuster trade to Chicago just days before the 2018 regular season began.
The 2
In his
first-round picks
debut,
will probably
he
do
became
shit.
the new monster of the Midway.
That nigga has literally been good on every team he's been on. Like, legit.
And Mack will take it all the way in for a touchdown. How crazy was that?
To this point, Khalil Mack has put together a career worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
He's
God.
made 8 Pro Bowls,
That nigga just
playing
missing a
for
ring. That's
3
it.
different franchises. He has 3 first-team All-Pros to his name and won that DPOY award in 2016.
Literally just
What's
missing a
pretty
ring.
crazy is he had his highest number of sacks in a season just this past year with 17. Even for a top 5 pick, Mack has exceeded expectations. And it'll be interesting to see how
didn't
long
even know he
he
had
can
17
continue to
this season.
play at a
Last
high
season.
level. 6th overall pick, the Falcons
That was a
selected
guard.
tackle Jake Matthews. This dude has straight up football DNA.
I feel like he
His
was
grandpa
cool.
played in the league. His dad was a Hall of Famer. His older brother was in the league at the time he was drafted.
Oh, so they
and
whole
he's
family
also
was
the
in the
cousin
league,
of
or-
Clay Matthews III, whose dad played in the league as well. And as good as many of his family members were, Jake Matthews
fuck is
appeared
Casey
destined
Matthews, and why
to
did
be
we
just
draft
as
him?
good as any of them. He was described as the following, quote, smart, tough, versatile franchise left tackle, capable of playing all 5 positions on the line. Now, tackles are tough to analyze.
When things go great, the quarterback's the first guy that gets the pat on the back, and the receiver gets the hug, and the defensive end that made the game-winning sack gets lifted up and carried off the field, and nobody remembers the O-line.
For 10 years, Jake Matthews
your
has
name is
been
Jason
an
Kelce.
Iron Man.
It's one of the most impressive streaks in the NFL, though it's hardly discussed.
He played in all but 1 game his rookie year and hasn't missed a game since. Throughout that time, he's been a good to above average starting tackle based on his PFF grades. He's never been a special all-time level player like Trent Williams or Joe Thomas, but he's given the Falcons quality above average tackle play without ever missing time, and they have rewarded him for that. Back in 2018, they gave Matthews a $75 million extension, and then in 2022, added on another 3-year, $52 million extension. Some may expect crazy accolades to be considered worthy of a top 10 pick, but I think Matthews has proven to be worthy of it in his own way. I saw this quote on Reddit that perfectly encapsulates his career. When he was drafted, I heard they can plug him in at left tackle for the next 10 years and not worry about it. They were right.
Yeah, obviously.
With the 7th overall pick, the
Years later,
Bucs
he's still
selected
here.
Texas A&M wide receiver Mike Evans. The duo of
Nasty.
Johnny Football and Mike
Nasty.
Evans was about as hyped as it got in college football in those days. With Evans being 6'5", 230, and having
Mike
great
Evans is a Hall of
athleticism,
Famer, bro.
the playmaking
Easily.
ability in
Got him a
college
ring,
was
all that
off
shit.
the
I
charts.
don't care.
Here's
Mike
how he
Evans
was
is a Hall of
described
Famer.
entering the NFL. quote, "He's a big, physical, strong-handed, West Coast possession receiver with playmaking ability who projects as a number 2 in the pros, where he will make his money as a chain mover and red zone target." Well, right off the bat, his rookie year was sensational. Evans finished tied for 4th in the league in receiving touchdowns and eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark. Something that amazingly to this day, he has never failed to reach. That's just insane. Whether it's been Josh McCown,
10 years straight,
Jameis Winston,
averaging a band
Tom Brady,
more.
or Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans has been the very
And he's
definition
never really
of
even had a
consistency,
consistent quarterback.
with 5 Pro Bowls to his name.
Now launches one, and it is caught for a touchdown by Mike Evans.
He's had a similar career arc to Jake Matthews, but has been an even better player relative to his position. Evans has never been considered the best receiver in the NFL, but he just continued to be a reliable number 1 receiver for Tampa Bay all these years. In 2020, he helped them win the Super Bowl. Then just this last season, in year 10, he tied Tyreek Hill for the most receiving touchdowns in the league. As a man who's made over $100 million in his career, Evans just re-signed with the Bucks on a 2-year, $52 million deal. As we have seen many of the excellent
10 years
receivers
later,
from the
this nigga's still a
2014
top
class
10,
fade
top
away
15
into lesser
receiver.
roles or out of the league, Mike Evans has separated himself from the pack. And at the age of 31, we will see if he can continue to produce with impeccable
Look at that.
And
These are receivers in his ass. I don't know what this nigga OBJ on. OBJ mid. I ain't gonna lie. Jarvis Landry's ass now. I'm sorry. Allen Robinson. Ass. Sammy Watkins is. I don't know. Sammy didn't even play last season. So John Brown had like a cool 2-3 seasons, and that was it.
And at the age of 31,
Come on now.
we will see
John
if he
Brown
can
had like
continue
2-3
to produce
seasons
with
on the
impeccable
Cardinals or some shit.
consistency
He was
as
good.
he goes on to carve out a case for the Hall of Fame. With the 8th overall pick in 2014, the Cleveland Browns selected Oklahoma State cornerback Justin Gilbert.
Who?
Perhaps the most athletic corner in the
Who
class.
is this?
Gilbert was electric in college, taking 6 returns to the house as a senior
it's
while
one of these
also
niggas.
performing
He's a kick return opponent.
outstandingly
He's a
as a
special teams
defensive
player.
back. He was described as the following, quote, "A big, fast, athletic,
I've never heard of this nigga.
man-cover
That's actually
corner,
crazy.
capable of locking down receivers and creating big plays in the return game, is the most physically gifted cover man in this year's draft." But almost immediately, problems began to arise in Cleveland. Gilbert
Amari?
struggled to move up
Who's
the
that?
depth chart as a rookie.
It's all about mindset in this league. He has all the physical ability in the
that's
world. It's all about mindset. Do you
Dante
take
Whitner?
your job seriously?
Multiple
Dante Whitner was
teammates,
fired.
including Dante Whitner and Carlos Dansby, publicly criticized Gilbert, calling his attitude into question. He also was a healthy scratch one game for being late to a team meeting, a problem that continued to be an issue in his second season. Gilbert saw even less playing time in 2015. One big reason was he continuously showed up late to team meetings.
Oh, he ain't care
The
for real.
problem that
He
he
ain't want it for real.
blamed
He
on
wasn't
being
hungry.
a heavy sleeper. 2 years in, and it was evident that this guy was not ready for the pros mentally and didn't have the natural ability to make up for it. Cleveland traded him to Pittsburgh, where he lasted just a season as a backup before never appearing in another NFL game.
What I tell you, you go to the Browns right now. Granted, I did say you go to the Browns, you either get a contract somewhere else or you don't. He got drafted. Unfortunately, he got drafted to the Browns. He got drafted to the Browns. He got a 1-year contract with the Steelers, and never played a game again. That's why I'm like, who the fuck is this nigga? Justin Gilbert? I've never heard of this nigga.
In 2017, Gilbert was suspended a year for violating the substance abuse policy, and since
this
then,
nigga was doing
he's been out
drugs?
of the NFL. And we can safely say that his NFL career was a massive disappointment.
This nigga
As
played
of
3
2023, he's playing arena football for the Sioux City Bandits.
Okay.
With the 9th overall pick in 2014, the Vikings selected UCLA linebacker Anthony Barr. Towering at 6'5" and 255 pounds, Barr was highly productive at UCLA and often showed off that wow factor in his play. At that size, he ran a blistering 4.41 40-yard dash, which is just absurd. It's also worth noting that his father and 2 of his uncles were NFL players. He was described on NFL.com as the following, quote, "A highly disruptive, athletic specimen with the pass rush potential to effortlessly emerge
I just
as
can't
a
get right with
double-digit
calling another
sack producer."
human. Like
Once
a
Barr arrived in
nigga,
Minnesota,
another specimen.
things
Like, that
looked
just don't sit
promising right
right.
away. He was a Rookie of the Year candidate and was one of 3 Viking defenders named to the PFF All-NFC North
Yeah,
team.
Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks and Harrison Smith. That's that was Vikings defense is nasty.
The following year, Barr would begin his string of 4 straight Pro Bowl level seasons, becoming one of the anchors on a vaunted Vikings defense, one that reached the NFC title game in January 2018. After 5 successful seasons, in 2019, Barr signed a 5-year, $67.5 million contract to stay in Minnesota. But after the 2019 season, Barr's body hasn't held up the same as it did early in his career.
Injuries are really
a torn
fucking
pec
nigga career,
kept him out of the majority of 2020. A knee
I don't
injury
wish
in
injuries on
21
niggas,
kept him out early. And now in 2023, he seems to be physically not what he once was, as he was mostly a practice squad player for the Vikings this last year. Overall, although he isn't the same player he once was,
Look at his
Barr
stats,
wasn't.
bro. Like, look at his stats. His shit just dropped drastically, bro. How you go from 55, 54, 37, 52, 39, 40 to fucking 6, 38, 35, 1, bro? Like, bro, injuries are really fuck your career up, bro.
An excellent addition to the Vikings defense
sports,
for around 6 years, certainly making him worthy of the price they paid for him back
really
in
fuck your career
2014.
up,
With the 10th pick in the 2014 NFL
Eric
Draft,
fucking
the
Ebron.
Lions selected
Eric
tight end
Ebron's a solid
Eric
tight end.
Ebron. Cut in the
was. I
mold
don't know
of
if
the
he's still
modern,
in the league or
fast,
not.
athletic tight end,
He was alright.
Ebron became the highest tight end selected.
He was like a
in
Sammy
Lions
Watkins. Like, he was a
franchise
good tight
history.
end. He
And
wasn't
here's how he was
nothing
described.
crazy, though.
Quote, highly athletic, highly productive, F tight end, dripping with upside and mismatch capability. Well, at the beginning, Ebron entered the regular season 3rd on the Lions depth chart and didn't make a huge impact as a rookie. However, he saw his catch and yard numbers increase to where he was a decent receiving tight end over the next few years.
He was
He was never
aight.
really a standout
Wasn't nothing
player
crazy.
and never developed into anything more than an average starter. After 4 years of average play, the Lions declined Ebron's 5th-year option,
I would've too.
and the Colts picked him up in 2018. A change of scenery proved to be a big deal, as Ebron had a career year, achieving Pro Bowl honors and leading all tight ends in touchdowns.
Putting some air under it. Has his man. Stumbles. Touchdown, Indianapolis.
However, despite the newfound success, this was sort of a one-year wonder, because Ebron didn't have another season close to
Telling
that
you,
level of
nigga
production.
been mid.
And
He's
after
just a
barely
good tight
getting
end.
any
Like, he's
targets
just
in
mid.
2021 with the Steelers, Ebron hasn't been
I ain't
on
gonna lie,
a
that
roster.
2020 to 2021 fall off is crazy. Oh my god, that's actually insane. How you go from almost getting 600 yards to barely getting 100?
Since he definitely was an
You didn't get 100.
underwhelming top 10 pick, with one big production year. But amongst other tight ends from the same class, he definitely was the best of them, as there really wasn't any other guy who did much in the league. Overall, the top 10 picks from 2014 was a mixed bag. Some great, some bad, and some...
Bro, out of this top 10, bro, this how it should have went, bro. It should have went Khalil Mack number 1, Mike Evans 2nd, Jake Matthews 3rd, Jadeveon Clowney 5th. I mean 4th. Sammy Watkins 5th. Anthony Barr 6th, Eric Ebron 7th, and then all the rest of them trash ass niggas is after that. I don't
Now,
give a fuck about the rest
one
of
thing
them
that's
niggas.
crazy about
Who
the
the
Rams
fuck is
draft
Justin Gilbert? Oh my god.
was even
Nigga
though
literally
their
had
number 2
3
overall
seasons
pick
in
was
him.
a
That was
total
it.
bust, their
If he actually
second
would have took
pick
his
of the
job
draft
seriously, he probably
and
could have been
13th
something.
overall, more than made up for it. Shout out to the recently retired Aaron Donald.
AD.
4th and 1. Burrow trying to keep it going.
Thank God
Spun
Johnson
down,
did
gets it away,
it. I would have hated for us to do this.
Of course.
I mean, you ain't have to think of.
Shout out Aaron Donald, man. You had a great career, man. But yeah, that's it for this video, man. Yeah, who the fuck is Gilbert? What? Yeah, I don't know. Y'all like, comment, subscribe, and share, man. I'm out, man.